The video spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Someone had recorded it. Maybe one of the medics. Maybe Captain Torvin himself. Nobody ever admitted who. But somehow, footage of the cub pressing against Hannah's chest found its way onto the galactic network. At first, only a few beings watched it. Then a few hundred. Then a few thousand. Within one standard week, over 2 billion beings across the known galaxy had seen the video of a small human woman holding a damaged Valari cub. The reactions were immediate and powerful. On the Valari homeworld, the video played on every screen in every city. Valari were proud warriors. They did not cry easily, but millions of them cried when they watched the footage. Here was one of their children, abused, broken, lost, and a human had saved it. A human had done what Valari doctors and counselors could not do. The Valari Grand Council released an official statement. We owe a debt to humanity that can never be repaid. From this day forward, humans will always be welcome on our world. On the Marath planet, scholars began studying the video. They watched it frame by frame, analyzing every movement Hannah made, every word she spoke. They wrote papers and gave lectures, trying to understand how she had achieved the impossible. The human made no attempt to dominate or control the cub, one scholar noted. This goes against every instinct of survival. Most species show strength to gain trust. The human showed weakness. And somehow, this weakness became her greatest strength. Other species had other reactions. The Taurians were confused. Why did she waste so much time? 5 days sitting on a floor? There must be more efficient methods. The Saranth were curious. The human's body temperature is higher than most species. Perhaps the warmth attracted the cub. We should study human biology more closely. The Gethrani, a species known for their cold logic, simply could not understand. The human had no logical reason to help. The cub was not her offspring. It was not even her species. Her behavior defies all rational analysis. But while scientists and scholars debated, ordinary beings across the galaxy understood something simpler. They watched the video and they felt something. Something deep and warm and hard to explain. They felt hope. On Waystation 14, life had changed for Hannah and the cub. The cub, who had been given the name Bora by Hannah, a Korean word meaning purple, for the tiny purple spot hidden in its silver, for was recovering quickly. Bora still did not trust most beings. She would hide behind Hannah whenever someone new entered the room. She would growl softly if anyone moved too fast. But with Hannah, she was different. With Hannah, she was calm and happy and safe. They had been given their own quarters, a small room with a soft bed and a window, looking out at the stars. Bora slept curled against Hannah every night. She ate her meals sitting beside Hannah. She followed Hannah everywhere, always staying close, never letting her human out of sight. She has imprinted on you, Dr. Vila explained during one of their medical visits. In Valari culture, this is called bonding. It usually happens between parent and child. Bora sees you as her mother now. Hannah looked down at the small cub pressed against her leg. Bora's golden eyes looked up at her with pure trust and love. I am not a mother, Hannah said softly. I do not know how to be a mother. You already are one, Vela replied. The best kind. The kind that is chosen, not by blood, but by love. The days passed, and Bora grew stronger. Her fur became clean and shiny, a beautiful silver that sparkled in the light. Her body filled out as she ate regular meals. The scars on her skin began to fade, though they would never disappear completely. But the biggest change was in her eyes. The emptiness was gone. The fear was fading. In their place was something new. Light, life, joy. One morning, 3 weeks after the rescue, Hannah woke up to find Bora sitting at the window, staring out at the stars. What are you looking at? Hana asked us softly. Bora turned her head. And then she did something that made Hana's heart stop. She spoke. Home. The word was rough and broken. Bora had never been taught to speak properly. But the word was clear. Home. Hana felt tears in her eyes. She walked to the window and sat down beside Bora. Together, they looked out at the vast darkness of space. Where's home? Hana asked gently. Bora looked up at her. Then, very slowly, she pressed her small body against Hana's side. Here, Hana could not speak. Her throat was too tight. She just wrapped her arm around Bora and held her close. Home. This small, damaged cub had found its home. Not in a place or a planet, but in a person. In a human who had done nothing more than sit and wait and love. The news of Bora's first word spread quickly, adding another chapter to the story that had captured the galaxy. Messages poured in from across the stars. Millions of beings sending their love and support to the human and her cub. But not everyone was happy. One evening, a group of Velari diplomats arrived at the station. They were tall and beautiful, with silver fur and proud eyes. They had come with a request. The cub belongs with her people, the lead diplomat said. His name was Kale, and he spoke with the authority of the Velari government. We have located her birth family. Her mother and father survived the attack that led to her capture. They want her back. Hana felt her heart freeze. Bora was pressed against her leg, hiding from the tall strangers. She could feel the cub shaking. She is afraid, Hana said quietly. She does not know them. They are her blood, Kale replied. Blood calls to blood. She will learn to know them in time. Hana looked down at Bora. The cub's golden eyes were wide with fear. She was gripping Hana's leg so tight that her small claws left marks in the fabric. What does Bora want? Hana asked. Has anyone asked her? The diplomats looked surprised. Among Velari, children did not make decisions. Adults decided for them. This was the way it had always been. She is a child, Kale said. She cannot know what is best for her. She knows who makes her feel safe, Hana replied. Her voice was quiet but firm. She knows who sat with her in the darkness. She knows who sang to her when she was afraid. She knows who held her when nobody else could. The room was silent. The diplomats looked at each other uncertainly. Then Bora did something unexpected. She stepped forward, away from Hana's leg. She was still shaking, but she stood straight and looked directly at Kale. My mother is here, she said. Her voice was small but clear. Hana is my mother. I stay. Kale stared at the cub for a long moment. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. The cub has spoken, he said. Among Velari, a child's first choice of parent is sacred. It cannot be challenged or overturned. He looked at Hana with new respect in his eyes. You have been chosen. You are now, in the eyes of Velari law, this child's mother. Hana dropped to her knees and pulled Bora into her arms. The cub wrapped her small arms around Hana's neck and held on tight. Thank you, Hana whispered. Thank you for choosing me. Bora pressed her face against Hana's shoulder. You chose me first. And she was right. That was the truth of it. Hana had chosen Bora when nobody else could reach her. She had chosen to sit and wait and love when giving up would have been so much easier. The galaxy continued to watch. Scientists continued to study. The diplomats continued to debate. But in the small room on Way Station 14, none of that mattered. What mattered was a human woman and a Velari cub sitting together at a window, looking out at the stars. What mattered was a family strange and unexpected and wonderful. A family built not on blood or species or logic, but on something far more powerful, something called love. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the stars seemed to shine just a little bit brighter. The fifth day began like all the others. Hannah woke up on the small mat she had brought into the medical bay. Her back hurt from sleeping on the hard floor. Her eyes were tired, but she did not complain. She simply sat up, stretched her arms, and looked at the cage. The cub was watching her. This was not unusual. The cub often watched her. But today, something was different. The cub's eyes were not filled with fear. They were filled with something else. Something that looked almost like hope. Hannah smiled softly. "Good morning, little one. Did you sleep?" The cub did not answer, of course. Valari could speak, but this cub had never learned how. It had been taken from its family too young. It had never been taught the words that other Valari children knew. All it had were feelings and sounds and the broken pieces of a language it could not use. But the cub understood Hannah. Somehow, it understood. Hannah reached for the small bowl of food that Dr. Villa had left by the door. It was a special mixture designed for Valari cubs, soft and warm and full of nutrients. The cub had refused to eat it every day, but Hannah still tried. She placed the bowl on the floor, about halfway between herself and the cage. Then she sat back and waited. The cub looked at the bowl. Then it looked at Hannah. Then back at the bowl. Something was happening inside the cub's mind. A battle between fear and need. The cub was hungry. So very hungry. Its small body was weak from days without food. Every part of it wanted to eat, but eating meant moving. Moving meant leaving the safety of the cage corner. Leaving safety meant danger. Danger meant pain. The cub had learned this lesson well. Its abusers had taught it with fists and fire and cruel words. The lesson was simple. Wanting things leads to suffering. But Hannah was patient. She had been patient for 5 days. She had never hurt the cub. She had never reached into the cage. She had never raised her voice or made sudden movements. She just sat there, day after day, waiting. Maybe this one was different. The cub moved forward. One small step. Then another. Then another. Hannah held her breath. She did not move. She did not speak. She just watched with gentle eyes as the cub crept toward the open door of the cage. The cub stopped at the edge. Its golden eyes looked out at the room beyond. The room was big and strange and full of unfamiliar smells. The cub had not left the cage since being rescued. The cage was horrible, but it was familiar. Familiar was safe, but the bowl of food was outside. And Hannah was outside. And something in the cub's heart wanted to be outside too. One more step. The cub's front paw touched the floor outside the cage. The metal was cold against its pads. The cub flinched but did not retreat. Another step. And another. And then, for the first time in weeks, the cub was standing outside its prison. Hannah felt tears in her eyes. She blinked them away quickly. She did not want to make any sudden movements that might scare the cub back into the cage. The cub looked at the bowl of food. It was still far away, maybe 2 meters. The distance seemed enormous. But the cub was hungry and tired of being afraid. It walked toward the bowl. Slowly, carefully, stopping every few steps to look at Hannah, making sure she was not moving, making sure she was not a threat. Hannah stayed perfectly still. She barely breathed. The cub reached the bowl. It sniffed the food carefully. Then, with one last glance at Hannah, it began to eat. The sound of the cub eating was the most beautiful sound Hannah had ever heard. It was the sound of life, the sound of hope, the sound of a small creature choosing to live instead of die. Dr. Vella was watching through the observation window. Her blue scales had turned a lighter shade, a sign of joy among her species. She pressed her hand against the glass, her eyes wide with amazement. The cub finished the food quickly. Its small belly was full for the first time in days. The warmth of the meal spread through its weak body, bringing energy and comfort. Then the cub did something that surprised everyone. It looked at Hannah. Really, looked at her. Not with fear, not with suspicion, just looking, studying this strange creature that had sat with it for 5 days. This creature that had sung songs and told stories and never asked for anything in return. Hana looked back. Her eyes were soft and warm. She did not smile. She had learned that showing teeth could be threatening to some species. She just looked at the cub with all the kindness in her heart. The cub took a step toward her. Hannah's heart started beating faster. But she did not move another step. The cub was close now. Close enough that Hana could see the scars on its small body. Close enough that she could smell the fear that still clung to its fur. The cub stopped right in front of her. It was so small, so thin, so damaged by everything that had been done to it. Then, slowly, the cub lifted one paw and touched Hannah's hand. The touch was light, barely there. The cub's paw was soft, despite everything, covered in silver fur that might have been beautiful once and would be beautiful again. Hannah did not move. She let the cub explore. Let it feel her strange, furless skin. Let it learn that touch could be gentle instead of painful. The cub moved closer. It sniffed Hannah's arm, her shoulder, her neck. It was learning her, understanding her, deciding if she could be trusted. And then, without warning, the cub pressed its small body against Hannah's chest. Hannah gasped softly. The cub was warm against her. She could feel its small heart beating fast, so fast. She could feel it shaking with leftover fear. But it did not pull away. Instead, the cub pushed closer. It pressed its face against Hannah's shoulder and closed its eyes. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The room was silent, except for the soft beeping of machines and the sound of two hearts beating, one human, one Valair. Then Hannah did something she had wanted to do for 5 days. She lifted her arms, very slowly, very carefully, and wrapped them around the cub. The cub tensed. Just for a second. Old fear rising up like a dark wave. But Hannah did not squeeze. She did not trap. She just held gently, softly, like the cub was made of glass. Her arms were not chains. They were shelter. The cub relaxed. Its small body went soft against Hannah's chest. The shaking stopped. The fear, the terrible fear that had controlled the cub for so long, began to fade. And then, for the first time in its short and terrible life, the cub felt safe. Hannah started to cry. She could not help it. The tears came quietly, rolling down her cheeks and falling onto the cub's dirty fur. She did not make a sound. She did not want to scare the cub, but she could not stop the tears. Outside the observation window, Captain Torvin watched in silence. His yellow eyes were wet too. He had seen many things in his long career. Battles and rescues and moments of tragedy and triumph. But he had never seen anything like this. A human. A small, fragile, supposedly weak human. Doing something that all the advanced medicine and technology in the galaxy could not do. She had healed a broken heart. Dr. Vila turned to Torvin. Her voice was shaking. How? How did she do it? Torvin shook his head slowly. I do not know. But I think I am beginning to understand why humans have survived so long. They are not strong in their bodies. They are strong in something else. Something we cannot measure or scan or explain. He looked back at the window, at the small woman holding the smaller cub. They are strong in their hearts. Inside the medical bay, Hannah held the sleeping cub close. She did not know how long she sat there. She did not care. Time did not matter anymore. All that mattered was the small life in her arms. The life she had saved, not with medicine or force, but with patience and kindness and love. The cub made a soft sound in its sleep. Not a cry or a whimper. Something else. Something that sounded almost like contentment. Hannah smiled through her tears. You are safe now, she whispered. "I promise. You are safe." 6 hours passed. Then 12. Then 20-4. Hannah did not leave the medical bay. She sat on the floor near the cage, and she waited. Sometimes she closed her eyes and rested. Sometimes she ate small meals that the station staff brought her. But she never left. And she never approached the cage. The medics thought she was crazy. They watched her through the observation window, shaking their heads in confusion. "What is she doing?" One of them asked. "She is just sitting there. The cub needs treatment. Every hour we wait, it gets weaker." The Sorenth medic, whose name was Vila, watched Hannah with thoughtful eyes. "I do not know what she is doing, but look at the cub. It has stopped growling. It has stopped shaking. Something is happening." It was true. The cub was still pressed against the back of the cage, still watching Hannah with careful eyes. But the wild terror was fading. The cub was not relaxed, not yet. But it was no longer expecting pain. On the second day, Hannah started to hum. It was a soft sound. A simple melody from Earth. Her grandmother had sung it to her when she was small. Lullaby about the moon and the stars and a child who was loved. Hannah did not sing the words. She just hummed the tune, letting the notes float through the quiet room. The cub's ears moved. They were small and round, covered in silver fur. When the humming started, they turned toward the sound, listening. Valari had excellent hearing. They could hear sounds that most species could not. To the cub, Hannah's humming was clear and beautiful. It was unlike any sound the cub had ever heard before. There was something in it, something warm and safe and gentle. The cub did not understand. No one had ever made sounds like this for it. The sounds it knew were harsh commands and angry shouts and the terrible silence that came before pain. But this sound was different. This sound did not want anything from the cub. It was just there, filling the air with softness. On the third day, Hannah spoke for the first time. "Hello, little one." Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. She did not look directly at the cub when she spoke. She looked at the floor, at the walls, at anything except those golden eyes. "My name is Hannah. I am a human. I come from a planet called Earth. It is very far away from here. It has blue oceans and green trees and a yellow sun." The cub did not respond, but its ears were still turned toward her, listening. "I know you are scared," Hannah continued. "I know bad things happen to you. I do not know what those things were, but I know they hurt you. I am sorry. I am so very sorry." Something in the cub's eyes flickered. A tiny movement. A small reaction to the word sorry. No one had ever said that word to the cub before. "I am not going to touch you," Hannah said. "I am not going to reach into your cage. I am not going to make you do anything. I am just going to sit here. And if you want, you can listen to me talk. Or you can sleep. Or you can ignore me. It is your choice." She paused. Then she smiled softly. "On my planet, we have animals called cats. They are small and furry and very independent. When I was a child, there was a cat that lived near my house. It had been hurt by someone, I do not know who. It was scared of everyone. It would run away if anyone got close." The cub's head lifted slightly. Just a tiny bit. Just enough to show that it was listening. "I wanted to help that cat," Hannah said. "But my grandmother told me something important. She said, 'Hannah, you cannot force trust. Trust is a gift. If you want the cat to trust you, you must earn it. You must show the cat, again and again, that you are safe, that you will not hurt it, that you will wait as long as it takes." Hannah looked at the floor. Her voice became even softer. It took a long time, many months. But eventually, the cat stopped running away. Eventually, it would sit near me while I read books in the garden. Eventually, it would let me touch its fur. And one day, it climbed into my lap and fell asleep. That was the day I understood what my grandmother meant. She looked up at the cage, not directly at the cub, just at the space around it. I know you are not a cat. I know you are a Valaria, proud and strong people. I know what was done to you was terrible. But I want you to know something. I will wait. I will wait as long as it takes. And I will never, ever hurt you. The room was silent after that. The only sounds were the soft beeping of machines and the distant hum of the station's engines. On the fourth day, the cub moved. It was such a small movement that Hana almost missed it. The cub shifted its position slightly. Instead of pressing against the back corner of the cage, it moved a tiny bit forward. Just a few centimeters. But it was movement. It was progress. Hana pretended not to notice. She kept humming her song. She kept talking about Earth and cats and her grandmother's garden. She kept being patient. The medics were getting worried. The cub had not eaten in days. Its small body was growing weaker. Dr. Vila came into the room on the fourth evening with concern in her eyes. "Ensign Yoon," she said quietly, "I must speak with you." Hana stood up slowly. She walked to the door where Vela was waiting, keeping her movements calm and gentle. "The cub's vital signs are dropping," Vala said. "If it does not eat soon, it will die. I do not want to sedate it against its will, but we may have no choice." Hana looked back at the cage. The cub was watching them, its golden eyes following their conversation. "Please," Hana said, "give me one more day. I know it seems like nothing is happening, but something is happening. The cub is starting to trust me. I can feel it." Vila looked uncertain. "One more day. But after that, I will have to make a decision. I have a duty to save this child's life, even if it means forcing treatment." Hana nodded. "I understand. Thank you." That night, Hana did something different. Instead of sitting far from the cage, she moved a little closer. Not much, just enough that the cub could see her more clearly in the dim light, and she started to sing, not humming this time. Actual words. The words of her grandmother's lullaby. "Moon so bright, stars so high, little one, please don't cry. Safe and warm, through the night, everything will be all right." Her voice was soft and gentle. It filled the room like warm light. The cub's eyes grew wide. No one had ever sung to it before. The cub did not know what singing was, but it understood somehow that this sound was meant for it. This sound was a gift. Something inside the cub's chest moved. Something that had been frozen for a very long time began to thaw. The cub opened its mouth. For a moment, Hana thought it was going to growl again. But instead, a different sound came out, a soft, broken cry. Not a cry of fear or pain. A cry of sadness. A cry of grief for everything that had been taken from it. A cry that said, "I am here. I am hurting. Please help me." Hana felt tears in her eyes. She wanted to run to the cage and hold the cub and tell it everything would be okay. But she did not move. Not yet. The cub was not ready for that. Instead, she just kept singing and crying and waiting. Outside the observation window, Captain Torvin watched with tears in his own yellow eyes. He had seen many things in his long life, but he had never seen anything like this. A small human woman, sitting alone in a room, trying to heal a broken child with nothing but patience and song. He did not know if it would work, but for the first time, he believed it might. The station continued its slow rotation through space. The stars kept burning in the endless dark. And somewhere in Medical Bay 7, a wall of fear began to crack, one tiny piece at a time. Yoon Hana was sleeping when the message came. She was dreaming of Earth, of green mountains and blue rivers, and the smell of rain on warm summer days. It was a good dream. The kind of dream that made waking up feel like a loss. Her communicator beeped 3 times. Emergency signal. Hannah opened her eyes and sat up slowly. Her small room on way station 14 was dark and quiet. Through her window, she could see the endless black of space dotted with distant stars. She had been living on this station for 2 years now, working as a cultural liaison for the Galactic Union. It was not an exciting job. Mostly, she helped different alien species understand each other. She translated not just words, but feelings and customs and ways of thinking. She picked up her communicator. "This is Ensign Yoon. What is the emergency?" The voice on the other end belonged to Station Commander Vex, a large Taurian with green skin and a voice like thunder. "Ensign, we need you in Medical Bay 7. Immediately." "Medical Bay?" "Sir, I am not a doctor." "I think you have the wrong." "I have the right person," Vex interrupted. "A galactic patrol ship docked 3 hours ago. They rescued victims from a trafficker vessel. Most of them are being treated. But there is one, a Valari cub. It will not let anyone near it. It has injured 6 medics already." Hannah frowned in confusion. "Commander, I still do not understand why you need me. I work with cultural issues, not medical emergencies." There was a pause on the other end. When Vex spoke again, his voice was softer, almost uncertain. The patrol captain made a request. He asked if there were any humans on the station. When I told him about you, he asked specifically for your help. "A human? Why would he want a human?" "I do not know, Ensign. But the captain is desperate. The cub is dying. Not from its physical injuries. Those can be treated. But it will not eat. It will not drink. It has given up on life. If someone does not reach it soon..." Vex did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Hannah was already getting dressed. "I am on my way." She walked quickly through the corridors of the station. Way Station 14 was a large place, home to over 10,000 beings from across the galaxy. At this late hour, most of them were asleep. The hallways were empty and quiet. Hannah's footsteps echoed on the metal floor. She thought about what she knew of the Valari. They were a proud people, known for their strength and their fierce independence. They valued honor and courage above all else. Their children were raised to be warriors from the moment they could walk. A Valari cub should be brave and strong. What had happened to this one to break it so completely? Medical Bay 7 was on the far side of the station. When Hannah arrived, she found a crowd of aliens waiting outside the door. There were Morath and Soranth and Taurians and a dozen other species she recognized. All of them looked worried. All of them were talking in low voices. The crowd parted as Hannah approached. She was small compared to most of them. Humans were one of the smaller species in the galaxy. But something in her steady walk made them move aside. Captain Torvin was standing by the door. His forearms were crossed over his chest, and there were bandages on one of his hands. When he saw Hannah, his yellow eyes widened slightly. "You are the human?" he asked. Hannah nodded. "Ensign Yoon Hannah, you asked for me?" "I asked for a human." "Any human." Torvin looked at her carefully. "I did not expect." "You are very small." "I know." Hannah was used to this reaction. Humans were not impressive to look at. They had no claws, no scales, no extra limbs. They were soft and weak compared to most other species. Many aliens wondered how humans had survived at all. "What can I do to help?" Torvin led her away from the crowd. He spoke quietly, so only she could hear. "I have been a patrol officer for 30 years. I have rescued many victims. Most of them can be helped. But this cub..." He shook his head slowly. "Its body can heal. But its mind is damaged. Its spirit is broken. It trusts no one. It will die alone and afraid unless someone can reach it." "And you think a human can do that?" Hannah asked. Why? Torvin was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised her. I have heard stories about your kind. Stories from other captains, other stations. They say that humans have a gift. A way of connecting with wounded creatures. Not through medicine or technology. Through something else. Something we do not have a word for in my language. Hannah thought about this. She knew what he meant, even if he could not name it. Humans called it many things: empathy, compassion, kindness. The ability to feel another being's pain as if it were your own. The desire to heal wounds that could not be seen. I will try, she said. But I cannot promise anything. That is all I ask. The door to the medical bay opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the lights were dim. The room was quiet except for the soft beeping of machines. In the far corner, Hannah could see a small metal cage. And inside the cage, a shape that did not move. Several medics stood near the entrance. They looked tired and frustrated. One of them, a Saunt with blue scales, stepped forward. The human? Finally, the Saunt did not sound hopeful. She sounded exhausted. I should warn you, the cub is extremely aggressive. It is bitten through medical gloves. It is scratched through protective suits. 3 of my staff needed treatment for their injuries. If you want my advice, thank you, Hannah said politely. But I would like to see the cub first. She walked past the medics toward the cage. Behind her, she heard them whispering. What can a human do that we cannot? One of them asked. Humans are the weakest species in the Union. Hannah ignored them. She was looking at the small creature in the cage. The cub was tiny, smaller than Hannah had expected. Its fur was dirty and matted, but she could see patches of silver underneath the filth. Its golden eyes were open, watching her with fear and anger and something else. Something that looked almost like despair. The cub growled. It was a weak sound. The cub did not have the energy for a strong warning anymore. Hannah stopped walking. She was still several meters away from the cage. Slowly, carefully, she sat down on the floor. She crossed her legs and placed her hands on her knees. Then she did something that confused everyone in the room. She did nothing. She just sat there, quiet, still, looking at the cub, with soft eyes. Minutes passed. The medics behind her shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. Someone whispered about wasting time, but Hannah did not move. And slowly, very slowly, the cub stopped growling. It was still watching her, still afraid. But something had changed. The cub had expected her to approach. It had expected her to reach into the cage and grab it, like everyone else had tried to do. But this strange creature with no fur and no claws just sat there, looking, waiting. The cub did not understand. And for the first time in a very long time, it felt something other than fear. It felt curious. Hannah saw the change in the cub's eyes. It was small, just a tiny flicker. But it was there, a crack in the wall of fear. A first tiny step toward trust. She smiled softly. Not at the cub, just to herself. This would take time. Maybe a lot of time. But for the first time since she walked into the room, Hannah believed it was possible. The stars outside the medical bay window turned slowly as the station rotated through space. And inside, a small human woman sat quietly on the floor, beginning the longest and most important conversation of her life. A conversation without words. The ship drifted through the cold darkness of space like a dead animal floating in water. It had no lights. It had no signals. It was just a dark shape moving slowly between the stars. Captain Torvin of the Galactic patrol vessel Bright Dawn saw it first on his scanner. He was a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms. His species, the Morath, had been part of the Galactic Union for over 1,000 years. In all his time as a patrol captain, he had learned to recognize trouble. And this ship was trouble. Unknown vessel detected, the computer said in its flat voice. No identification signal. No life support readings. Possible derelict. Torvin leaned forward in his command chair. His yellow eyes narrowed. No, not a derelict. Scan it again. Look for shielded compartments. The scan took only a few seconds. The results made Torvin's blood run cold. Captain, his officer said, her voice shaking. There are life signs. 47 of them. They are in a hidden compartment near the cargo bay. The readings are weak. Very weak. Torvin stood up. He knew what this was. Every patrol officer knew. This was a trafficker ship. Someone was moving living beings across space like they were objects. Like they were things to be sold. All crew to stations, Torvin commanded. We board that ship now. The boarding was quick and efficient. Torvin led his team through the dark corridors of the trafficker vessel. The air inside was bad. It smelled like fear and pain and suffering. The walls were dirty. The floors were covered in things Torvin did not want to identify. They found the hidden compartment behind a fake wall in the cargo bay. When they cut through the metal door, the smell that came out was worse than anything Torvin had ever experienced. He had fought in wars. He had seen death. But this was different. This was cruelty. Inside the compartment, there were cages. Small metal cages stacked on top of each other like boxes in a warehouse. And inside those cages were beings. Different species from different worlds. Some were adults. Some were children. All of them were thin and sick and scared. Medical teams. Torvin shouted into his communicator. We need medical teams now. The rescue operation began immediately. Medics from the bright dawn rushed into the compartment with their equipment. They started opening cages and treating the victims. Most of the beings were too weak to resist. They let the medics touch them and scan them and give them medicine. But there was one cage in the far corner that nobody could approach. Torvin walked toward it slowly. The cage was smaller than the others. It was pushed into the darkest corner of the room, like someone wanted to forget it existed. Inside, he could see a small shape pressed against the back wall. What do we have here? Torvin asked one of his medics. The medic, a Saunt with blue scales and gentle eyes, shook her head. It is a Valari cub, Captain. Very young. Maybe 3 or 4 cycles old. But we cannot get close. Every time we try, it attacks. Torvin looked at the small creature in the cage. The Valari were a proud species. They looked like large cats from the human planet Earth, but they walked on 2 legs and had hands that could hold tools. Their fur was usually beautiful silver or gold or deep blue. But this cub's fur was matted and dirty. It was gray with filth. And there were marks on its body. Burns. Cuts. Signs of terrible abuse. The cub's eyes were the worst part. They were large and golden, like all Valari eyes. But these eyes held no light. They were empty. Dead. The eyes of a creature that had given up hope long ago. Open the cage, Torvin said quietly. Captain, it is dangerous. The cub has already bitten 2 of my medics. Valari have very strong jaws, even as children. It could open the cage, Torvin repeated. We cannot leave it in there. The medic obeyed. She pressed the release button on the cage door. The metal bars swung open. The cub did not run. It did not try to escape. Instead, it pressed itself harder against the back of the cage. Its small body was shaking. A low sound came from its throat, a warning growl that was also somehow a cry for help. Torvin knelt down slowly. He extended one of his 4 hands toward the cub. It is okay, little one. We are here to help you. Nobody will hurt you anymore. The cub's reaction was instant and violent. It lunged forward with a scream. Its small claws caught Torvin's hand, cutting through his gray skin. Blood-purple Morath blood dripped onto the floor of the cage. Torvin pulled his hand back quickly. He was not angry. He was sad. So very sad. "The cub has been hurt too much," the Soren's medic said softly. "It does not trust anyone. It cannot trust anyone. Its mind has been broken by what was done to it." Torvin looked at his bleeding hand, then at the small creature in the cage. The cub had retreated to the back again. It was breathing hard. Its golden eyes watched them all with pure terror. "We need to sedate it," another medic suggested. "It is the only way to treat its injuries." "No," Torvin said firmly. "We will not force it. That is what its abusers did. We must find another way." But what other way was there? The cub would not let anyone touch it. It would not eat the food they offered. It would not drink the water they placed near its cage. It just sat there in the darkness, shaking and waiting for more pain to come. The news of the rescue spread quickly through the bright dawn. Everyone heard about the victims. Everyone heard about the traffickers who had been captured. And everyone heard about the small Valari cub that nobody could help. That night, the cub's cries echoed through the medical bay. They were not loud cries. They were soft, broken sounds, the sounds of a child who had learned that crying loudly only brought more punishment. It was the saddest sound anyone on the ship had ever heard. Torvin stood outside the medical bay, listening. His 4 hands were clenched into fists. In all his years of service, he had never felt so helpless. "There must be someone who can reach this child," he said to himself. Someone somewhere must be able to help. He did not know it yet, but help was coming. It was coming in the form of a small human woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice. A woman named Yoon Hana, but that part of the story would have to wait until tomorrow. For now, the cub sat alone in the darkness, and the stars outside the ship windows burned cold and bright and far away.